Jimmy Phelan came to be the head coach of the Huskies. Coach Phelan had many successful years.
Corner of the end zone where Mark Patterson makes the catch with just 34 seconds to go.
Polk, right side, yes! Polk into the end zone, touchdown Washington!
Some say football is like a religion, but Husky Stadium is no church.
Deafening was a way to describe it.
The crowd is crazy.
It gets your adrenaline going.
Sure, there may be a sermon in the locker room.
You didn't quit, man. You kept battling.
And an occasional Hail Mary on the field. But this congregation of purple and gold is here for only one calling.
Let's go, Huskies!
To turn up the volume so loud, the visiting team can only pray they hear their own signal.
A very tough place for the opposing team to come in and play because of the crowd.
Teams that come into Husky Stadium don't stand a chance.
They're loud, they're passionate, and it just never stops through the whole game.
As a player on the field, it was unbelievable.
The ground would shake under you. This place was just rocking.
70,000 strong, millions tuning in. It all happens here in the name of the almighty UW, and the real emphasis is on the W, winning.
Throwing for the end zone for Curse, well covered, reaches up, touchdown! And the Huskies have taken the lead!
Winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Those words have always been attributed to the legendary Vince Lombardi. Truth is, they actually came from a Pac-10 coach. And winning is exactly what got this stadium built in the first place. Meet a man named Gilmore Doby. Gloomy Gil put Husky football on the map. Coaching from 1908 to 1916, he never lost a game, and that's a lot of football in the W column.
I can't even fathom not ever losing a game.
When you look back at the Doby era, without that era, I'm not sure that you would have the same feelings and the same conversations about Husky football if it weren't for that time.
By the time Doby finished his run at the UW, the stands were packed. 20,000 a game with thousands more begging to get inside. The old stadium at Denny Field on the edge of campus simply could not contain the kind of fever Doby whipped up every Saturday. So winning and winners got a new home along Montlake. A modern concrete and steel bowl provided seating for 30,000, just a down payment for today's capacity, but it was truly monumental. The only real sports stadium in town when it was completed in 1920. The sad thing is, Doby never got the chance to coach in it. He had moved on to another program back east. But what he left behind was one heck of a record, a 39-game winning streak for the Huskies, still the second best in Division I history. The first 20 years in Husky Stadium were winning years. The team took 8 out of every 10 games at home and went to 3 Rose Bowls under coaches Enoch Bagshaw and James Phelan. For sports, the Huskies really were the only game in town, and every seat in the stands got a workout on football. But one of the greatest moments on the field never went into the record books, and it had nothing to do with football. President Warren G. Harding came to town on a barnstorming national tour, and where else better to give a political stump speech than Seattle's favorite gathering place? Unfortunately, on that July 27, 1923, the man of honor electrifying the crowd was dying. Harding arrived with what he thought was a mild case of food poisoning. In fact, he had suffered a stroke. Unknown to anyone at the time, even Harding himself, this was the president's last great public address. 6 days later, Harding died in San Francisco. The siren is hands down the most beautiful sound any Husky fan will ever hear. The tradition goes all the way back to 1921. But June 13th, 1943 was the one day the siren was not a celebration. It was serious business. That was the day of the largest civil defense exercise this country has ever seen, and it happened right here at Husky Stadium. The U.S. was worried about being attacked by Japan during World War II, and an air raid exercise simulated a bombing blitz right on the 50-yard line. Buildings were destroyed, and volunteers faked injuries. In the 90 minutes it took to run the drill, they were lucky they didn't burn the whole place down. 35,000 people jammed the stands to watch. In time, these images were shown around the country to help cities prepare for the worst. When you think about it, this may have been the first national broadcast ever from Husky Stadium. In the early 1950s, Seattle was booming. Even Husky Stadium got a new upper deck with a cantilevered steel roof that increased the seating capacity to 55,000. But down on the field, there was nothing to cheer about. It had been years without a Rose Bowl bid. But one flash of greatness came in the form of Hugh McElhaney. Was McElhaney's style unorthodox? Yes. Did he help to win football games? You bet. When McElhaney took the ball, he moved every direction of the compass. They called him Hurrying Hugh, and he hurried his way into the end zone so often, many still consider the King as one of the all-time greatest running backs. When Jim Owens arrived at Husky Stadium in 1957, he wasn't even 30 years old. The Huskies were on a string of lackluster seasons, and Owens' assignment was to make something out of a whole lot of nothing. But Jim Owens came from that Bear Bryant smash-mouth style of football, and Jim Owens came ready to rumble.
Jim had to change the culture. When he got here, it was a softer culture than he wanted it to be.
You came in and you were impressed with discipline right away, and the fact that only a few make it. You were part of 140 new players that came in when I was a freshman. And when we were done, there were numbers that you could count on two hands.
They always brought the freshman team over to scrimmage against the varsity. They couldn't wait to get some fodder that they could take it out on. The freshmen were, by the end of 20 minutes, all they're doing is looking around trying to protect themselves because these guys were just headhunting. They were taking people out right and left.
The Jim Owens formula was simple: get tough or get out. When Norm Dicks arrived as a freshman, he was put on the lowest level squad on the team, dubbed the Green Weenies. He asked an assistant coach how he could advance to the top of the heap, the Purples, and the coach replied, "Norm, take matters into your own hands."
And he said, well, the coaches really like to see fights, and they're upset with your team, your freshman team, because nobody's gotten into a fight. Now, you can't fight on you don't want to get a penalty, but they like to see some fights in practice. So that afternoon, I go out there, and I get into 2 fights. Figure one's good, 2 will be really good. And so the next day, I'm on the Purples.
Big Jim gets the big line for the final time this season.
In just 4 years, Owens turned a soft program into the hardest team to play in the country. And on New Year's Day, '61, the Huskies won the Rose Bowl, capping the 1960 campaign with a national championship. By the end of the 60s, the Huskies had slipped from greatness. Winning seasons were hard to come by. But in 1969, Jim Owens landed one of the best recruits of his career, Sonny Sixkiller.
Way up north, I heard a scout one day say, Coach Jim Owens wants the Indian Brave, Sonny Sixkiller.
The name alone sounded like a Hollywood invention, but Sixkiller was the real deal. He could laser a ball from point A to point B faster than any arm in college.
Sonny Sixkiller, I remember jumping on one of his passes from a defensive standpoint.
and the ball hit me so hard in the hands that it just like bounced off. And I mean, literally, I don't think anybody ever threw a ball that hard that I tried to catch.
One thing about J.O. that I liked is that he was fair, and he really grew to like what I was doing. And not just, I'm saying as an offense, not just me, but he would come out to practice early, even my sophomore year, junior, senior, and he wanted to always play catch. You know, I mean, how many head coaches come out and just run routes and play catch with you? I mean, I thought that was pretty cool.
Perhaps Sixkiller's most memorable game was the very first time he started at Husky Stadium.
Your parents are here, your sister's here, your brother-in-laws are here, your nephews are here, everybody's here to watch you your first game. The crowd did it for me because early on, you know, second play or so, a pass, completion, fourth play or so, I run down the field like 50 yards, crowd's going crazy, and then we end up that drive throwing a touchdown pass to Ira Hammond, and I've never heard that noise before.
The name Sixkiller still stands behind several of college football's passing records. Fans loved him, sports writers adored him, and he did even make it to Hollywood to play a part in the movie The Longest Yard.
Sunny Sixkiller.
After 18 years on the field, Jim Owens resigned in 1974, and the Huskies signed a new coach just before Christmas of that year, Don James.
Husky Football 1975.
Don is an analyst. Don is almost an accountant by personality and by style of coaching.
The James gang moved into town in 1975 to take over the Husky football program, and with head coach Don James, it was quite a football season at the University of Washington as the Huskies played one of their toughest schedules in history.
All of a sudden we went from somebody who's down on the field hugging you to somebody who's in a tower.
Winning didn't come easily for James, and impatient fans begin to wonder, did the UW make the right decision?
We were 5-4 the first year and 4-5 and the next year 5. We were, you know, right about dead level, and then I'm on a 4-year contract, and the third year we start out 1-3. So I'm pretty close to, being on the road, and that was a real downtime. But we got to work. I went down and I don't know how many points we put up against Oregon. I think we could have put up 100. But I think the team was well prepared. Then we were fortunate enough to get to the Rose Bowl and beat Michigan that year.
The first touchdown came as Moon rolled to the left, ran it in for the score. Washington leads it 7-0 over Michigan.
Perhaps Don James' most controversial decision was taking a chance on a young kid from LA who insisted on being a quarterback.
Which was a little bit crazy at the time. I mean, it was a risk for him to start an African-American quarterback.
Warren just came in there, it was the racial situation, and I said, Warren, it doesn't matter. The best 11 players are going to be out there. It appears as though you're one of the best players we've got out there, and you're going to play it.
Just knowing he had that confidence in me and knowing that he was taking a lot of those bullets that I was taking, I didn't want to let him down.
Over his 17-year career, Don James took the Huskies to 14 bowl games. They shared the national title in 1984 and 91, and the Husky program sent more players to the NFL than any other team.
I still don't think I fully comprehend how difficult a job it is and how masterfully he did it.
What they did statistically is amazing, but more so there is the intimidation factor that the Huskies had. That you knew, regardless of whether they were or not, you thought of them as the most physical team in the conference.
Coach James had a unique ability to be close to his players but not too close and find a way to motivate them to where they wanted to play well for him. He was able to walk that fine line.
The word potential, I don't think, resonates with Coach James. He wants to see performance. So if you're a guy that goes out every day and works hard, works at your craft, has a good attitude, is a good teammate, is a good team member, then he's going to reward you.
By the end of his tenure, sports fans affectionately pegged James with the new persona, the Dog Father, something he still smiles about today.
Yeah.
Of course, there are great moments also great moments in Husky Stadium history. The most spectacular loss came on February 25th, 1987. It wasn't on the field, but up in the stands. Due to a construction error, the second cantilevered roof being added to the facility buckled and collapsed. Fortunately, no one was hurt. And amazingly, the stadium opened on time for the first home game in the fall. Like a good lesson learned, the Huskies tightened the screws on Stanford and won 31-21. The second cantilevered roof not only gave Husky Stadium a nicely balanced profile, but it expanded the seating capacity to its current 72,500. And as you climb to the top tier of seats on a sunny fall Saturday, you realize your relatively inexpensive ticket just bought you a $1 million view.
I've been to many stadiums, some of the most famous stadiums around the nation, and there is nothing like Husky Stadium.
I used to take a recruit all the way to the top of the stadium. I says, come on, I want to show you something. You know, I'm trying to impress him.
There's the lake, and there's all the boats, and it's bright and sunny. It is, without a doubt, the most beautiful stadium and the most beautiful setting.
I've always marveled at the beauty of this place and how great it had to be to live here and to stay here.
There's no other stadium that gives you that quality looking across at trees and mountains and water combined the way we have it.
It's no wonder fans spend half the game out of their seats, amping up the noise factor. That's because there is a small army down on the field and even up in the bleachers with a single mission: incite a non-stop riot. You have your cheerleaders, team mascot, the marching band, Husky helmet cars circling the field, and even a superhero, Captain Husky. With a sea of humanity just looking for a reason to get loud, there was one cheer launched in 1981 that had "Stand Up and Shout" written all over it: The Wave.
Rob Weller started the wave because I was there and I witnessed it and I participated in it.
It was the third quarter against Stanford, and we intercepted a pass against Elway, running in for a touchdown. Unbelievable, nutty. And both times preceding it, we'd done this up and down cheer. And so people thought, oh my God, let's do this all day. And Bill Bissell, the band director, came over and said, hey, you really got him going, do it again. Go up and down, go side to side, but do it again. And I thought, well, maybe that side to side thing's a good idea. So I go and I said, okay, let's try it again, let's do something different. I'll start down on the goal line, I'll run, and go with me as I run. 3, 2, 1, here we go. And I'm running up, they're standing up and they're yelling. They did it perfectly. It was the group next to them, the alums. They said, we're in. They kept it going.
People just couldn't understand what was happening. And I remember the coach standing on the sideline just looking around saying, what is happening here?
And then the bleachers picked it up in the end zone. And then it comes around the student section again and goes around again. And at that point, I remember I'm watching it. Elway is in the middle of the huddle. He stops the huddle, takes off his helmet, and watches it go around.
Nobody had ever done this, and it was so cool to see.
It was a tremendous thing to watch, and to this day, whenever I see it happen in a stadium, I know that it was here that it started.
Yes!
It's an understatement to say emotions run high during a football game. Most players, coaches, and fans can barely contain themselves. But the place of the most intense emotions in all of Husky Stadium is one the crowd never gets to see. A corridor through which both teams have to enter and exit the field. The tunnel.
Whenever I take someone on a tour of Husky Stadium, it always starts in the tunnel. And even on a Saturday afternoon in July with no one in the building, people are blown away.
The tunnel went through some transformation. The tunnel today is not what the tunnel was years ago.
In the early days, even when I played, it wasn't as fancy as it is today. It wasn't painted white, nice lighting, posters on the wall.
And I think it was even dirt at one point.
It was dark, it was wet, it was dank. It had a couple 40-watt light bulbs hanging down by the wires.
With with spider webs.
I know that James did go in, some lights were actually put in the tunnel, and some AstroTurf was put down.
When we're in the tunnel, there's a little jockeying that would go on between us and some of the other teams. You know, we would always kind of start at the head of the tunnel and let those teams go by, and while they were going by, you know, it'd be a lot of barking going on. You know, we consider ourselves some rabid dogs, and we used to have a chant that we would say in the tunnel.
My first experience down the tunnel, I had to learn what these chants are, and you learn real quick what to say, what to do, what not to do.
I can't repeat all the words that we use in that chant, but that would get us fired up before a game.
When you get in there and you're with your buddies and it's tight, you really feel connected before you take the field.
And you could already hear the people in the crowd. You could hear the stadium thundering before we even walked down.
The hair on the back of my neck just goes straight up.
As you're heading down, you're going, God, did I go to the bathroom? Because, you know, it just starts building up.
The first game of actually being in uniform and walking down that tunnel, I remember just almost peeing my pants. Just coming down that tunnel was so loud.
And captains go, okay, let's go. Boom.
1, 2, 3, go!
You run out, and the crowd would just go nuts.
When you come out of that tunnel and just the excitement, and you know the fans all of a sudden going nuts, and the horns going off, and the dogs running around, the cheerleaders are doing their thing. It's pretty exciting, and you know it really is.
The crowd erupts for the first home game of the new season, and you know here me and all these other young kids are running out of there just wide-eyed like a deer in headlights, and it was just unbelievably intense.
For anybody who's been down that tunnel, they get it, and for anybody who's not, you're missing out because it is an amazing experience.
The tunnel is something that you'll remember for the rest of your life.
I'm not sure there's another entrance in sports that rivals that.
Next time on Greatest Moments at Husky Stadium, Tom Osborne's Nebraska Cornhuskers come to Seattle. The lights were on, the Huskies and their fans were ready, and it was truly a night to remember.